Please, just $15. I need $15 to buy cookies to save my grandma." The words escaped her lips in a whisper so quiet it could have been drowned out by the rustling of the leaves in the wind. But they weren't. They reached the billionaire walking down the street, his steps brisk as he made his way to the bakery. The girl's hands trembled slightly as she held the sign, her small fingers gripping the cardboard tightly, trying to steady the words that might just make a difference. She stood there in the rain, the world passing her by as if she were invisible, just another face in the crowd. Her coat, faded and too big for her, hung loosely around her, the fabric fraying at the edges. She wasn't begging for herself, not really. She was begging for someone else, for her grandma, who needed help more than she ever could. Her eyes, big and wide, held a story of sorrow and hope, sorrow from a life too harsh for someone her age, and hope that, just maybe, someone would see her. The street was bustling with people rushing to their destinations, oblivious to the girl's quiet plea. But the billionaire heard her, his pace slowing as he noticed her standing there, her face illuminated by the warm light from the bakery window, the only sign of comfort in this cold night. The girl's voice was soft but steady, a stark contrast to the world around her. She repeated the words, almost as if they were a prayer. "Please, just $15. I need to buy cookies to save my grandma." The billionaire's steps faltered for a moment as he looked down at the small girl standing before him. His gaze lingered on her for a beat longer than he intended, his mind briefly flashing back to his own childhood, to the faces of those who had once looked at him with desperation. But this time, he wasn't one of those people. He was the one who could help. And in that moment, something shifted inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time, a tug at his heart. The girl waited for a response, her small face upturned, hoping, just hoping, that this time, someone would listen. The billionaire stood there for a moment, his eyes fixed on the small girl holding the cardboard sign in front of him. The rain had begun to fall harder, turning the street into a slick, shimmering mirror. He could feel the chill in the air, but there was something else, a warmth rising in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. The girl's plea echoed in his ears. "Please, just $15. I need to buy cookies to save my grandma." He took a step closer, his gaze softening, and for a second, the busy world around him seemed to disappear. The woman inside the bakery, busy arranging pastries, didn't notice. The man hurrying to catch his train didn't notice. But he noticed. Her words held a quiet urgency that tugged at his heart. He had heard similar stories before, stories of hardship, of struggles, of people asking for help, but this was different. This wasn't just a plea for money. This was a plea for someone to care, for someone to make a difference. The girl's eyes, wide with hope, held his attention. She wasn't crying, but her face was strained, and the lines of exhaustion were visible despite her small frame. The billionaire had built an empire on intellect, on seeing problems and finding solutions. He had solved so many of the world's toughest challenges, but standing here, in front of this little girl, he was speechless. He bent down slightly, his knees creaking, a movement that felt out of place for someone used to the polished, sleek world of boardrooms and high-end cars. "What kind of cookies?" he asked, his voice quiet but steady. The girl blinked, taken aback by the question. For a second, she seemed uncertain, as if she hadn't expected him to engage with her. But then, she hesitated, her small fingers clutching the sign tighter, as if she were afraid he might change his mind. "I don't know," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But Grandma likes them. She says they're special. She's sick, and I think she'll feel better if I bring her some." The billionaire's heart tightened. There was something so pure in her words, so innocent, that it was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just about the money. It wasn't just about cookies. It was about a little girl, desperate to do something for the person she loved most in the world. The billionaire nodded slowly, his mind racing. He could feel the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. In his world, $15 meant nothing, but in her world, it was everything. "I'll buy the cookies," he said, his voice firm now. The girl's face lit up in a way that made his chest ache. She hadn't expected him to say yes, and yet, here she was, standing in front of him with the slightest glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly. But the gratitude in her voice was overwhelming. It wasn't just a thank you for the cookies. It was a thank you for being seen, for being heard, for not being ignored like so many others had done before. The billionaire reached into his wallet and handed her a $20 bill. "Here, take this," he said. "Get the cookies, and make sure your grandma gets better." The girl's hand shook as she took the money, her eyes never leaving his. I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The billionaire watched her for a moment, seeing the hope in her eyes, the courage in her stance. He knew that this moment, this small act of kindness, would stay with her forever. And in that moment, something inside him changed. He wasn't just helping a child. He was seeing the world through her eyes, understanding the weight of every decision, every struggle, every small victory. As the girl turned to walk towards the bakery, her steps light and quick, the billionaire couldn't help but smile. He felt, for the first time in a long time, like he was part of something bigger than himself. He watched as she disappeared through the door of the bakery, the bell above it ringing softly as it closed behind her. For a moment, everything felt right in the world. But as the door shut, the billionaire's smile faded. He realized that this was just the beginning. The girl had given him more than just a simple thank you. She had given him a glimpse into a life he had long forgotten, a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change everything. The billionaire watched the little girl disappear into the bakery, the door swinging shut behind her with a soft chime. He stood frozen for a moment, the weight of the decision still pressing on him. He had given her $20. It was nothing to him, a small sum in the grand scheme of his wealth. But to her, it meant everything. It meant a chance for her to bring comfort to her sick grandmother. It meant a glimpse of hope in the cold, dark world she lived in. The billionaire turned and started walking down the street, his mind heavy with thoughts. He couldn't shake the image of the little girl from his mind, the way her eyes had lit up when he handed her the money, the way she had thanked him as if he had just given her the world. It was a simple act of kindness, but it had affected him in a way he hadn't expected. As he walked, he glanced at the luxury stores that lined the street, the expensive cars parked in front of them, the towering skyscrapers in the distance. He had everything: money, power, status. But in that moment, standing on that rainy street, he felt empty. The feeling gnawed at him, and for the first time in a long time, he wondered if all the wealth in the world could ever fill the emptiness he felt inside. He thought about his own family, his father, who had always been distant and focused on business, and his mother, who had passed away years ago, leaving a void in his heart that he had never been able to fill. The girl's words echoed in his mind. "I need to buy cookies to save my grandma." The simplicity of it, the innocence. He had everything, yet here was a little girl willing to sacrifice for someone she loved. She wasn't asking for luxury. She wasn't asking for more than she needed. She just wanted to help her grandmother. And somehow, that made him feel like he had been missing something all along. He reached his car, but instead of getting in, he paused. He stared at the bakery across the street. The warm yellow light spilling from the windows seemed like a beacon in the storm, a symbol of everything he had long ignored in his relentless pursuit of success. The world had taught him to be strong, to be ruthless, to keep his emotions in check. But that little girl had shown him something different, something he had forgotten. The importance of caring, of giving. He didn't know why he felt so compelled, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had to do more. He turned back toward the bakery, his feet carrying him without thought. As he reached the door, he paused, looking through the glass window. The little girl was standing at the counter, a bag of cookies in her hands. She was smiling, but it wasn't the smile of a child who had just received a treat. It was the smile of a child who had just done something for someone she loved. He stepped inside, the bell above the door ringing softly. She looked up, startled, as he approached. "I didn't expect to see you again," she said, her voice hesitant. The billionaire smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I didn't expect to be back either," he said. He knelt down to her level, his voice gentle. "How's your grandma?" The girl's face softened, and for a moment, she didn't answer. She just looked at him, her eyes wide and searching. Then, with a small nod, she whispered, "She's going to be okay. I got the cookies." The billionaire felt a lump form in his throat. It wasn't just the cookies. It was the hope in her voice, the strength she had shown in the face of adversity. He reached into his wallet and pulled out another $20 bill, handing it to her. "Take this. For your grandma's medicine, or whatever else you need." The girl's eyes widened in disbelief. "You don't have to," she said quickly, shaking her head. "I can't accept that." He smiled softly. "You don't have to do anything. I just want to make sure your grandma gets better." She hesitated, then slowly took the money, her hands trembling slightly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. The billionaire stood up, feeling a deep sense of peace that he hadn't felt in years. He looked at the little girl, standing there in front of him, her worn coat and small frame, and he knew that this moment would stay with him forever. He wasn't just helping a child. He was helping himself. He had rediscovered something he had lost, something far more important than wealth or success. The simple act of caring. He turned to leave, but as he reached the door, he paused and looked back at her one last time. She was already walking out of the bakery, a bag of cookies in her hand, her head held high. And in that moment, he knew that he had made the right choice. He had given her more than money. He had given her hope, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. The billionaire watched as the little girl disappeared into the rain, the soft sound of her footsteps barely audible against the backdrop of the city. He stood there for a moment longer, staring at the bakery's door, wondering if he had done enough. His mind was racing. He had given her money more than enough for cookies, but there was a nagging feeling in his chest, a sense that something was missing. She had asked for $15 to save her grandmother, but what had he really done? He had helped in the moment, but was that enough? The next morning, the billionaire found himself thinking about her again. He couldn't get the image of her face out of his mind, the way her eyes lit up when he handed her the money, the gratitude that had flowed from her like a river. It was something so simple, yet so profound, a small act of kindness. He wondered how many people, how many children, lived their lives without ever receiving that kind of attention. He decided he couldn't let it end there. The thought of her grandmother, sick and waiting for cookies, gnawed at him. He had to do more. He had the resources, he had the power, and for the first time in a long time, he felt compelled to use it. Without thinking, he picked up the phone and dialed his assistant. "I need to find out where that bakery is," he said, his voice steady but urgent. "I want to do more for that little girl and her grandmother." His assistant quickly gathered the details, and within the hour, the billionaire was in his car, headed toward the small bakery. The streets were slick with rain, the world outside moving in a blur as he thought about the girl, her plea, and her courage. When he arrived at the bakery, the bell above the door jingled softly as he stepped inside. The warmth of the place was a welcome contrast to the chill outside. The smell of fresh-baked goods filled the air, and for a moment, he felt a sense of calm. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. He approached the counter, and the young woman behind it looked up in surprise. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice friendly but cautious. "I'm looking for the little girl who was here yesterday," the billionaire said, his voice low. "She bought cookies." The woman's face softened as she nodded. "I remember her," she said. "She comes in every now and then. She's always so polite, but you can tell she's had a rough time. She was here yesterday, all by herself, buying cookies for her grandma." The billionaire's heart ached. "Do you know where I can find her?" he asked, trying to keep the emotion out of his voice. The woman hesitated, glancing around the bakery. "She lives in the neighborhood," she said, her voice dropping. "I don't know the exact address, but she lives with her grandmother, down near the corner of 5th and Main. It's a tough area. I've heard things." The billionaire didn't need to hear more. He thanked the woman and walked out of the bakery, his mind set on one thing: finding the girl and helping her in a way he hadn't yet. He wasn't sure what that help would look like, but he knew he couldn't just walk away. He had the resources to make a difference, and it was time he started using them. He drove to the address, his heart pounding as he approached the neighborhood. It was a stark contrast to the luxury he was used to. The streets were lined with old, weathered buildings, the sidewalks cracked and uneven. Children played in the street, their laughter a brief moment of joy in an otherwise grim environment. As he pulled up to the corner of 5th and Main, he saw her. The little girl was standing in front of a small, rundown house, her arms wrapped around herself to ward off the cold. She didn't see him at first. She was staring down at the ground, her face tense with concentration. For a moment, He just watched her. She looked so small, so fragile, standing there in the midst of a world that seemed too harsh for someone her age. She was holding the bag of cookies he had given her the day before, but there was something else in her hands, a crumpled piece of paper, a letter, maybe. He didn't know, but it was clear that she was carrying more than just cookies. She was carrying the weight of a life that wasn't easy. The billionaire took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. He walked toward her, his footsteps loud against the quiet street. When she looked up and saw him, her face froze for a second, the recognition dawning slowly in her eyes. You came back," she whispered, her voice full of disbelief. The billionaire nodded. "I couldn't forget you," he said softly. He paused for a moment, then continued. "I want to help. I want to make sure you and your grandmother don't have to struggle anymore." Her eyes widened, her lips parting as if she didn't know what to say. But why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because I can," he replied simply. "And because I should." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card. "I'll make sure you and your grandmother have everything you need," he said, handing it to her. "Call me anytime." She took the card, her small fingers trembling, her face still in shock. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The billionaire smiled, a warmth spreading through him. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was doing something that mattered. He wasn't just helping with cookies anymore. He was helping to change her life and his own. The billionaire watched as the little girl clutched the business card in her trembling hands, her wide eyes still full of disbelief. It wasn't just the shock of seeing him again. It was the overwhelming realization that someone like him, was offering help, real, tangible help. The tears that had threatened to fall in the bakery were now hidden behind a hesitant smile, the kind of smile that only appeared when hope felt real for the first time. He could see it in her. This was a moment that would change everything for her. The billionaire stood there, watching her for a few moments longer, feeling a connection to her that he couldn't explain. He didn't know what the future would hold for the two of them, but he knew this was the right step. He turned back to his car, walking slowly, feeling the weight of the decision pressing on his chest. It wasn't just about charity. It wasn't about looking good. It was about giving someone a chance, a real chance to live differently. As he sat in his car, he made another call, this time to a private medical facility he trusted, one that could help the little girl's grandmother with proper care. The billionaire had the means, the resources, and the influence. It was time he used them in a way that truly mattered. The next day, he arranged for a car to pick up the little girl and her grandmother and take them to the medical facility. He called the girl to let her know everything was set, that help was on the way. She was hesitant at first, not fully understanding why he was doing this, but he reassured her. He promised her that this was the beginning of something better, something she and her grandmother deserved. When they arrived at the medical facility, the little girl's grandmother was immediately admitted, her condition worse than anyone had realized. The billionaire stayed by their side throughout the day, ensuring that everything was taken care of, from the medical bills to the medications. His presence wasn't just a gesture, it was a commitment. He didn't just want to give them a little help. He wanted to change their lives. As the day wore on, the little girl, still in disbelief, began to relax. She watched as her grandmother received the care she desperately needed, the doctors and nurses working tirelessly to bring her back to health. There was no sense of rushing, no sense of ignoring their needs. It was a place where they mattered. The billionaire stood beside them, watching as the two of them spoke quietly, their voices full of relief, their bond strengthening with every word. The next morning, the little girl came to him with a small gift. She handed him a piece of paper, a drawing she had made with crayons, the colors bright and bold. It was a picture of a house, with a large tree in the front yard, and a big heart drawn in the sky. "Thank you," she said quietly. "This is for you." The billionaire smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. He didn't need the drawing, not really, but it was everything. It was a symbol of the hope he had given her, and it was a reminder of why he had done this in the first place. As the days passed, the little girl's grandmother grew stronger, her health improving with each passing day. The billionaire stayed in touch, checking in regularly, ensuring they had everything they needed. But more than the financial help, more than the medical care, he saw something else, a change in the little girl's eyes. The fear that had once filled them was fading, replaced by a quiet confidence. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. She was starting to believe in herself again, starting to believe that there was more to life than the hardships she had endured. And it wasn't just her. It was him, too. As he watched her and her grandmother find their footing again, he realized that this experience had done more for him than he could have ever imagined. It had reminded him of the importance of kindness, of giving without expecting anything in return. It had shown him that, despite all his wealth and success, the things that truly mattered in life were the moments that brought people together, the connections that could change lives. A few weeks later, the little girl and her grandmother were back in their home, no longer struggling to make ends meet. The billionaire had made sure they had a safe place to live, a steady income, and a future full of possibilities. As he stood in front of their home one last time, he saw the little girl standing in the doorway, smiling. She waved at him, her face full of gratitude and warmth. "Thank you for everything," she called out, her voice steady and strong. The billionaire smiled back, his heart full. This wasn't just about saving a life. It was about giving someone the chance to save themselves, to change the course of their future. And that was something money could never buy. The weeks passed, and the little girl and her grandmother slowly adapted to their new life. They were no longer living in fear, struggling to survive each day. Instead, they had hope, a future, and the sense of security that had long eluded them. The billionaire kept in touch, ensuring they had everything they needed. The little girl, whose name was Maya, was now attending school regularly, her grades improving as she focused on her studies. She had become a different person. The sadness that once clouded her eyes had been replaced with a bright, eager curiosity. Maya had always been smart, but now, with her basic needs met, she was free to explore her potential. It wasn't just the material things that had changed. It was the way she saw herself, the way she believed in her own worth. Her grandmother, too, had regained her strength, both physically and emotionally. No longer burdened by the constant stress of wondering how they would make it through the week, she could now rest and focus on her health. For the first time in years, she felt at peace. One day, a few months after the billionaire had first crossed their path, Maya came to him with a shy smile. She was holding a piece of paper in her hands, and her eyes sparkled with excitement. "I made something for you," she said, her voice full of pride. The billionaire smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. Maya handed him the paper. It was a drawing, simple but beautiful. It depicted a large tree with branches reaching up toward the sky, with Maya and her grandmother standing underneath it, their arms wrapped around each other. At the top, in big, colorful letters, was the word family. The billionaire felt a lump form in his throat as he looked at the drawing. It wasn't just a picture, it was a symbol of everything they had been through together. It was a reminder that they were no longer just surviving. They were living. Maya's grandmother had asked her to draw it. She said it was to remind them of how far they had come, how much they had overcome. "You gave us a chance," Maya whispered. "You gave us a family." The billionaire sat back, the drawing still in his hands. His eyes welled up with tears, but he didn't try to hide them. He had always prided himself on his ability to control his emotions. But this was different. The connection he had with Maya and her grandmother had changed him in ways he hadn't expected. He wasn't just helping them. They had helped him, too. They had shown him what really mattered in life: love, compassion, and the ability to make a real difference in someone's world. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. Maya smiled, her eyes bright with happiness. "You're welcome," she replied, "and thank you for being our family." The billionaire nodded, his heart full. He had never expected that a simple act of kindness could lead to something so profound. He had given them the opportunity to build a better life, but in return, they had given him something far more valuable: a sense of purpose, a reminder that he had the power to change lives, to make the world a little brighter. As the days went on, Maya continued to thrive. She was excelling in school, making new friends, and even joining extracurricular activities. Her grandmother, too, was doing better, regaining her health and her sense of self-worth. The billionaire continued to visit them, not as a benefactor, but as a friend, a member of their new family. He watched as Maya and her grandmother found their place in the world, and he knew that he had played a part in their transformation. He had given them a chance, but they had given him something in return that he would never forget. One afternoon, as he sat in their small living room, Maya turned to him with a question. "Do you think we can ever be as happy as other families?" she asked, her voice filled with a quiet uncertainty. The billionaire looked at her, seeing the same hopeful spark in her eyes that he had seen when he first met her. "You already are," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "You've always been capable of happiness. Now you have the opportunity to live it." Maya smiled, her face lighting up with a radiant grin. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." The billionaire nodded, his heart swelling with pride. He had given them more than just money or resources. He had given them the chance to build a life filled with love, laughter, and hope. As he stood to leave, he looked at Maya and her grandmother one last time. He knew that their journey was far from over. There would still be challenges ahead, but they had already proven that they could overcome anything. They had each other, and that, he realized, was all anyone really needed. Months passed, and with each passing day, Maya and her grandmother settled into a life that seemed unrecognizable from the days when they struggled just to get by. The little house that had once felt so small and cold now felt like a home, filled with warmth, laughter, and possibility. Maya's grades were improving, and she was becoming a confident, curious child, the weight of worry and fear no longer hanging over her. Her grandmother, once frail and worn by illness, had regained much of her strength, and the two of them spent their days together, cooking meals, gardening, and enjoying the simple pleasures of life. The billionaire, who had once been just a stranger offering a hand, had become a fixture in their lives. He didn't just visit occasionally, he was part of their routine now. He would stop by to check on them, sometimes bringing flowers for the house, other times just sitting with Maya and her grandmother, talking about everything and nothing. His life, once so consumed by business and wealth, was now enriched by the connection he shared with them. But even as they thrived, something was missing. The billionaire began to notice it when he arrived at their home one Saturday morning. He was used to hearing the sound of Maya's laughter in the yard as she played, or her grandmother humming softly as she worked. But today, everything was unusually quiet. He knocked on the door, and when Maya answered, he immediately noticed the look on her face. It wasn't the bright, joyful face he had come to know, it was one clouded with confusion and uncertainty. "Maya?" he asked gently, crouching down to her level. "What's going on?" She hesitated, then shrugged her small shoulders. "Grandma's been acting strange," she said softly. "She's been sleeping a lot and doesn't really talk to me anymore. I think something's wrong." The billionaire's heart sank. He had been so focused on their progress, on how far they had come, that he had overlooked the signs that something wasn't right. He had seen how her grandmother had slowly regained her strength, but now he could see the shift in her. He stood up, motioning for Maya to stay by his side. "Let's go talk to her," he said, his voice steady. Inside, Maya's grandmother was sitting in her favorite chair, staring out the window. The light from the afternoon sun cast a warm glow over her face, but there was an emptiness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. The billionaire approached her slowly, his footsteps silent on the wooden floor. "How are you feeling today?" he asked softly, his voice full of concern. She turned to look at him, her expression distant, as if she were seeing him from a great distance. "I'm fine," she said, her voice quiet, almost robotic. "Just tired." The billionaire knelt down beside her, gently placing his hand on hers. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. "You're not just tired, you've been through a lot, and we're here for you, Maya, and me." She blinked, her eyes slowly refocusing on him. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, with a small sigh, she spoke. "I've been feeling weak again," she confessed. "I thought it was just the after effects of being sick, but now I'm not sure. I don't want to burden Maya. I don't want her to see me like this." The billionaire's heart ached for her. He could see the love she had for Maya, the selflessness in her desire to protect her granddaughter from the harsh realities of life. But it was clear to him that Maya needed to see her grandmother's strength, even in moments of vulnerability. He reached out, gently lifting her chin. "You're not a burden," he said firmly. You've given Maya everything she needs to grow up strong. But that doesn't mean you have to carry this burden alone. We're family, remember? We take care of each other." She looked at him, and for the first time in a long while, the weight in her eyes seemed to lift. She gave a small nod, and a tear slipped down her cheek. Maya, who had been standing in the doorway, watching silently, stepped forward and climbed into her grandmother's lap. "Grandma, I'm here for you," she said, her voice soft but full of love. "We're in this together." The billionaire watched the two of them, his heart full. In that moment, he realized that this was what true family looked like, not just shared blood, but shared love, shared strength, and shared vulnerability. Maya's grandmother smiled at her, her hand brushing the hair from her face. "Thank you, sweet girl," she whispered. "I'm sorry I scared you." Maya shook her head. "You didn't scare me," she said. "I'm just glad you're here." The billionaire stood, his heart swelling with emotion. "I'll take care of everything," he promised. "Whatever you need, just let me know." And for the first time, he truly understood the depth of his promise. It wasn't just about money or resources, it was about being there, showing up, and giving them the space to heal, to grow, and to live without fear. The weeks that followed were difficult, but the love between Maya, her grandmother, and the billionaire only grew stronger. He arranged for the best medical care and made sure that Maya's grandmother was monitored closely. The doctor confirmed that she needed additional treatments, but with the right care, she would have a chance at a full recovery. And so, day by day, things slowly began to improve. The laughter returned to the house, and the light in Maya's grandmother's eyes grew brighter. The billionaire, once so consumed by his empire, had found something far more precious: the power of human connection, of helping someone not just with money, but with time, care, and love. Weeks had passed since Maya's grandmother had begun her recovery, and life in the small home had slowly returned to a sense of normalcy. Maya had become more confident at school, making new friends and excelling in her studies. Her grandmother, though still recovering, was growing stronger each day. The love between them had only deepened, their bond unbreakable. But there were moments of doubt, moments when both Maya and her grandmother questioned whether this new life they had been given could truly last. The billionaire, who had been a constant presence in their lives, continued to visit, not as a benefactor but as a friend. He had become part of their daily lives, stopping by to help, to listen, and to offer support. He had given them more than money. He had given them a sense of security, a belief that things could get better. One evening, Maya and her grandmother were sitting on the porch, enjoying the cool evening air. The sun had just set, casting a warm orange glow over the neighborhood. Maya's grandmother was resting in her favorite chair, while Maya sat cross-legged beside her, drawing in a notebook. They talked about everything and nothing, the way families do. Then, as if the weight of everything finally caught up with them, Maya spoke softly, her voice uncertain. "Grandma, do you think this is real? Do you think this life can last?" Her grandmother looked at her, her eyes filled with love and understanding. She had known Maya long enough to recognize when something was bothering her. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Maya paused, her pencil hovering over the page. "I mean, we have everything we need now, but what if it all goes away? What if things go back to how they were?" Her grandmother smiled softly, brushing a lock of hair from Maya's face. "Sometimes, my dear, life doesn't give us guarantees. But what we have now is real, Maya, and it's not going anywhere. We have each other, and that's all that matters." Maya thought about her grandmother's words for a moment, then nodded slowly. She felt comforted by the simple truth of it. They were together, and together, they could face anything. Later that evening, the billionaire arrived, just as he always did, with a warm smile and an open heart. He had been keeping an eye on their progress, ensuring that everything was going well, but tonight, something was different. He had come with a purpose. He walked over to Maya and her grandmother, who were sitting together on the porch. "How are we doing tonight?" he asked, his voice full of warmth. Maya smiled, looking up at him. "We're good," she said. "Grandma's getting stronger every day." The billionaire nodded, but there was a glint of something in his eyes. "I'm glad to hear that," he said. But I want to make sure that you both have everything you need for the future. I've been thinking a lot about how I can help." Maya's grandmother raised an eyebrow. "You've already done so much for us," she said softly. "You've given us a chance to live again." The billionaire looked at them both, his expression serious. "I've been working with a financial advisor, and we've come up with a plan that will set you both up for the future. It's not just about getting by day to day, it's about making sure that you're taken care of, no matter what happens." Maya's grandmother looked at him, surprised. "You're thinking about our future?" she asked. The billionaire nodded. "Of course. You've given me something I never expected, a sense of purpose. And now, I want to make sure that you're both set up for the rest of your lives." Maya's grandmother's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to take his hand. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You've already given us more than we ever thought possible." The billionaire squeezed her hand gently. "No thanks are necessary," he said. "I just want you both to have a future, to know that you'll always be okay. You've taught me more about what truly matters than anyone else ever could. You've shown me what it means to be a family." The air around them seemed to still, as the words hung in the air. Maya watched them both, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had always known that the billionaire had done so much for them, but now she understood he wasn't just giving them financial support. He was giving them a future that they could now dream about. As the night wore on, the three of them sat together on the porch, talking about their plans for the future. Maya's grandmother spoke of her hopes to open a small bakery, a place where she could share her love of cooking with others. Maya talked about her dreams of becoming a teacher, of helping other children the way she had been helped. And the billionaire, for the first time in a long time, simply listened. He didn't need to offer advice or solutions. He was content in knowing that, for once, he had given them the chance to dream. They were no longer just surviving, they were living. And that, he realized, was the greatest gift of all. Months passed, and the quiet transformation in Maya and her grandmother's life continued. The billionaire kept his promise, making sure they had everything they needed. There were no more sleepless nights spent wondering where the next meal would come from or how they would pay the bills. Maya excelled in school, her bright future now within reach, while her grandmother, though still adjusting to the changes, began to open up more. She had even started volunteering at a local community center, cooking for the homeless, which brought her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Yet, despite the stability they had now, a certain unease lingered in the air. Maya, always thoughtful, could not shake the feeling that something was still missing. Though they had a roof over their heads and food on the table, there was still the question of whether this life would last. The sense of security the billionaire had given them was undeniable, but as Maya sat in her room one evening, she began to wonder if all of this could really last forever. She picked up the phone, her fingers hovering over the screen for a moment before she dialed his number. The billionaire had become more than a benefactor to her and her grandmother. He had become a friend, a mentor. He had taught her that kindness could change lives, that success wasn't just about money, but about making a difference. When he picked up, she could hear the familiar warmth in his voice. "Hello, Maya. How are you?" he asked. "I'm good," she replied, her voice hesitant. "But I've been thinking a lot about things, about us, and I don't know if I can shake the feeling that everything is just temporary, like we're not really settled." The billionaire paused for a moment, his voice soft but reassuring. "I understand what you mean, Maya," he said. "Sometimes, when we've been through so much uncertainty, it's hard to trust that things will stay good, but you've built something solid. You and your grandmother have created a new life for yourselves, and you've done it together." Maya swallowed hard, the words she had been holding and spilling out before she could stop them. But what if something happens? What if it all falls apart? What if it's just luck that we're doing well now, and someday that luck will run out? The billionaire's voice grew firmer, though still gentle. "Maya, you've learned something very important through all of this. You've learned how to keep going, no matter what. And that's not luck. That's strength. It's not about what happens to you, but about what you do with what happens. You've made it this far because you never gave up." Maya let out a slow breath, the knot in her chest loosening just a little. "But what if I don't know what to do next?" she asked, her voice small. "What if I'm scared of failing?" The billionaire chuckled softly. "That's natural. Fear is part of life, but the secret is not to let it stop you. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to doubt. But as long as you keep moving forward, you'll be okay. Maya smiled, her heart lightening. She could feel the truth in his words, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe it. She wasn't alone in this journey. She had her grandmother, and she had the billionaire, who had shown her that she could create the future she wanted. "Thank you," she whispered into the phone. "I really needed to hear that." "You're welcome, Maya," the billionaire replied. "And remember, I'm always here for you, whenever you need me." That night, as Maya lay in bed, she thought about all that had changed. She remembered the first day she met the billionaire, when she had stood outside the bakery, begging for a chance, for help. She remembered how unsure she had been, how she had doubted that someone like him would ever care about someone like her. But now, here she was, surrounded by the love of her grandmother and the support of someone who had given her more than just money. He had given her a future, and she realized, as she closed her eyes that night, that she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. The next day, Maya woke up early, her mind already racing with ideas. She had a sense of purpose now, something she hadn't felt in a long time. The future wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. She spent the morning sketching ideas for a project she had been dreaming about for a while, a tutoring program for children in the community who were struggling in school. She knew how important education was, how it had been the key to her own success, and she wanted to give other children the same opportunities she had been given. When she showed her grandmother the plan that afternoon, her grandmother's eyes filled with pride. "You've grown so much, Maya," she said. "I'm so proud of you." Maya beamed, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She wasn't just helping her grandmother anymore, she was helping others, making sure they had the chance to succeed, too. That evening, Maya called the billionaire again. "I've decided what I want to do," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "I want to start a tutoring program for kids who need help. I want to give back, just like you gave to me." The billionaire's voice was full of warmth. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Maya, and I'd love to help however I can. Let me know what you need." As she hung up the phone, Maya felt a sense of pride wash over her. She was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that she wasn't alone. The future was full of possibilities, and she was ready to take it on, one step at a time. As the days went by, Maya's tutoring program began to take shape. With the billionaire's support, she was able to gather the resources she needed to start her initiative. The community center where her grandmother had been volunteering offered space for the tutoring sessions, and Maya began reaching out to local schools to find children who needed help with their studies. The response was overwhelming. Parents and teachers alike were eager to get their children involved, and soon, Maya found herself leading a group of eager young minds, all of whom were struggling in different ways but united by their desire to learn. She started small, offering after-school sessions on reading and math, but as the weeks passed, the program expanded. The other kids were excited to be there, and Maya felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. This wasn't just about helping them pass their tests. It was about giving them the chance to dream, to see a future that was brighter than the one they might have otherwise faced. Every day, Maya poured her heart into her lessons, staying late to make sure each child understood the material. She worked closely with their families, offering additional resources and guidance, always making sure the kids knew that she was there for them, no matter what. As the program grew, so did Maya's confidence. She wasn't just a student anymore. She was a leader, a mentor, someone who had the power to change lives. She had found her purpose, and it was more than she had ever hoped for. Meanwhile, her grandmother's health continued to improve. The additional treatments had worked wonders, and she was able to return to her gardening and baking with renewed energy. She spent her mornings at the community center, helping out wherever she could, and her afternoons watching Maya work with the children. She was proud of her granddaughter, not just for her academic success, but for the way she had turned her challenges into something meaningful. Maya's grandmother had always been a source of strength for her, but now she could see that their roles had shifted. Maya was the one leading the way, and her grandmother was supporting her, just as she had always supported her. The two of them were a team, working side by side to create a better future for themselves and for the children they helped. One afternoon, as the tutoring session came to an end, Maya sat down with one of her students. a young boy named Jamal, who had struggled with reading for years. He had come to Maya's program with little hope of improving, convinced that school was something he would never be good at. But in the few weeks he had been working with Maya, his confidence had grown. He was reading aloud, his words shaky at first, but more sure as the days went on. As he finished reading a passage from a book, he looked up at Maya with a shy smile. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I never thought I could do this, but now, I think I can." Maya smiled back, her heart full. "I always knew you could," she said. "You just needed to believe in yourself." Jamal nodded, his eyes shining. "I'm going to keep practicing," he promised. Maya nodded, feeling a swell of pride. She had helped him find his voice, and in doing so, she had found her own. That evening, as Maya and her grandmother sat down to dinner, they talked about the progress the program was making and how much the children were learning. Maya's grandmother listened intently, her heart swelling with pride as she saw the difference Maya was making in the community. It wasn't just about the tutoring program anymore. It was about something bigger, a movement to inspire and uplift others, to give them the tools they needed to succeed. As Maya cleared the dishes, she noticed her grandmother looking at her with a thoughtful expression. "You've really made a difference, Maya," her grandmother said softly. "I don't think you realize just how much you've changed everything." Maya looked at her, a little surprised. "I'm just helping them learn," she said. "That's all." "No, sweetheart," her grandmother replied, her voice full of emotion. "You're doing so much more than that. You're giving them hope. You're showing them that they matter." Maya's eyes filled with tears, and she sat down beside her grandmother, taking her hand. "I just want to help," she whispered. "I just want them to have the chance I didn't have." Her grandmother squeezed her hand. "You've given them that chance," she said, her voice full of love and pride, "and you've given yourself a future that's yours to shape." That night, as Maya lay in bed, she thought about all that had changed in her life. She thought about the little girl she had been, standing in front of that bakery, unsure of anything beyond the moment. She thought about the billionaire, who had given her a chance when no one else had. And she thought about all the children she was now helping, each one with their own dreams, their own potential. She knew there was still a long way to go. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles that would make her question her path. But she also knew, deep down, that she was ready. She was not the scared, uncertain girl she had been. She was a leader now, and she had the power to change the world around her, one child at a time. She smiled to herself as she closed her eyes, knowing that the future she had once feared was now a future she could embrace. The days seemed to blur together as Maya's tutoring program continued to thrive. With each passing week, more children joined, eager to learn and gain the skills they had been lacking. Maya felt an immense sense of pride watching them grow. Each small victory, each step forward, felt like her own. But as successful as the program was, she knew the work wasn't over. There were still children in the community who hadn't yet discovered their potential, and Maya wasn't going to stop until every single one of them had a chance to succeed. The billionaire, who had become a close friend and mentor to both Maya and her grandmother, continued to offer his support in every way he could. He helped secure scholarships for the older kids, connected the program to more resources, and provided financial backing to ensure the program's sustainability. His generosity had changed everything for Maya, but as Maya's program grew, so did the challenges. She began to notice that some of the children were still struggling with more than just academics. There were families facing financial hardship, children whose parents couldn't afford basic school supplies or proper meals. As Maya witnessed this, she realized that simply tutoring them wasn't enough. She needed to do more. She spoke to the billionaire about her concerns, and together, they came up with a plan to offer not just academic help, but also essential resources like school supplies, food, and even counseling services for the families in need. The billionaire, always supportive of Maya's ideas, immediately took action. "You're right," he said. "Education is important, but so is taking care of the basic needs. Let's make sure these kids have everything they need to succeed, inside and outside the classroom." Maya felt a surge of gratitude. With his help, she could finally address the gaps that went beyond just learning. The community center became a hub of activity, with Maya coordinating with local organizations to provide everything from backpacks to meals. The children who had once come to the program uncertain and hungry now had the tools they needed to thrive both physically and mentally. One particular child, named Jasmine, stood out. She had been one of the quieter ones, withdrawn and hesitant to participate. At first, Maya couldn't figure out why she wasn't as engaged as the other children. But one day, after a tutoring session, Jasmine pulled Maya aside. "I don't want to take the food," Jasmine confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to be a burden." Maya knelt down, her heart aching for the young girl. "Jasmine, you're not a burden. You're a part of this community, and you deserve to have everything you need, just like everyone else." Jasmine looked up at her eyes wide with uncertainty. "But we never had enough before," she said. "My mom always says we have to save every penny, that we can't waste anything." Maya smiled softly. "I understand, Jasmine, but sometimes it's okay to accept help. It doesn't make you weak or a burden. It just means that we care about you." Jasmine nodded slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing just a little. From that day on, Jasmine became one of the most enthusiastic participants in the program. She not only began to excel in her studies but also started helping the younger kids, sharing what she had learned. Maya couldn't have been prouder. It was moments like these that reminded her why she had started this journey in the first place, to make sure that no child felt like they didn't belong. No child felt like they weren't worthy of a better life. One evening, after a long day of tutoring, Maya sat with her grandmother in their cozy living room. The warmth from the fireplace filled the space, and the soft glow of the lamp illuminated the family photos on the walls. Her grandmother, who had been by her side through it all, looked at her with a sense of pride. "I've never seen you so happy, Maya," she said softly, her voice filled with warmth. "I'm proud of you, my dear. You've come so far." Maya smiled, her heart swelling. "I couldn't have done it without you, Grandma. You've always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Her grandmother reached over, taking her hand. "And you've always had the strength to do this, Maya. You're just now realizing your own power." Maya squeezed her grandmother's hand. "I never thought I could make a difference, but now I know I can." A quiet moment passed between them, a moment filled with love and understanding. Maya knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be more obstacles to overcome, more children to help, and more work to be done. But she was no longer afraid of the future. She had her family, her community, and the knowledge that she had the power to create change. The next day, Maya stood in front of the children at the community center, a feeling of confidence surging within her. "You all have so much potential," she said, her voice steady and full of conviction. "And together, we're going to build a future where everyone has the chance to succeed. We're not just learning here, we're building something bigger than ourselves. We're building a community of hope, a community where everyone has a chance." The children cheered, their faces full of excitement and belief. Maya knew that this was just the beginning. There was so much more to do, but as she looked around at the smiling faces of the children, the future felt bright. Together, they would rise above the challenges they faced, and Maya would make sure that every single child had the opportunity to become the person they were meant to be. As the tutoring program grew, so did the sense of purpose that Maya felt every day. The children in the community center now looked to her not just for academic help, but for guidance in life. Maya had become more than a tutor, she was a role model, a mentor, someone they trusted. Her program had evolved into something much more powerful than she had ever imagined. But as it expanded, so did the challenges. With the increase in the number of children, Maya began to realize that she could no longer do everything herself. She had started this journey alone, driven by the desire to help, but now she needed support. The weight of running the program was becoming overwhelming, and as much as she wanted to give everything she had to the kids, she knew she had to ask for help. One day, after a long day of tutoring, Maya sat at her desk, looking at the list of children she was helping. She thought about each of them, their unique struggles, their potential, and the dreams they had yet to achieve. She wanted to do more for them, but she couldn't do it alone. She reached for her phone and dialed the billionaire's number, the one person who had always been there for her when she needed guidance. "Hello, Maya," the billionaire answered, his voice calm and reassuring. "How's everything going with the program?" Maya sighed softly, her shoulders heavy with the weight of everything she had been carrying. "It's going well, but it's becoming a lot. There are more kids now, and I can't manage everything on my own." I need help, but I don't know where to turn. The billionaire's voice was warm with understanding. I knew this day would come, he said. You've created something incredible, Maya, and it's okay to ask for help. We'll figure it out together. Maya smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. The billionaire chuckled softly. You've done it all on your own so far, but you don't have to anymore. I'll help you expand the program, and I'll make sure you have the resources you need. You've earned it. Over the next few weeks, the billionaire helped Maya recruit additional volunteers and staff to support the program. He connected her with local organizations and community leaders, all of whom wanted to contribute in any way they could. Soon, Maya had a team of passionate individuals working alongside her, each one bringing their own skills and energy to the program. The community center became a vibrant hub of learning, with children excitedly participating in the tutoring sessions and receiving the support they needed to succeed. The program grew, not just in size but in impact. The changes Maya had been making were starting to ripple outwards, affecting not just the children, but their families and the entire community. One day, Maya stood at the front of the room, watching as the children worked on their assignments, their faces full of concentration. She had come so far from the little girl who had stood outside the bakery, unsure of where her life was headed. She had built something real, something that was changing lives. Her grandmother, too, had found a renewed sense of purpose. She had become a beloved figure in the community, helping to organize events and fundraisers for the program. She was no longer just the quiet woman who had struggled to make ends meet. She was a vital part of the movement Maya had created. The day was coming when Maya would have to make an important decision about the future of her program. She had the chance to expand it even further, but it would require a larger commitment, more time, more resources, and even more responsibility. As she stood in front of the classroom, watching the children's smiles, Maya knew that this was her chance to make an even bigger impact. She thought about her own journey, the struggles she had faced, the doubts she had overcome, and the people who had helped her along the way. She had already come so far, and she was ready to take the next step. She looked out at the children in the room, each one eager to learn and full of potential. She had helped them find their voice, just as the billionaire had helped her find hers. Now it was her turn to give back, to create something that would last long after she was gone. That evening, after the tutoring session had ended, Maya sat down with her grandmother at their kitchen table. The house was quiet, the evening light casting a soft glow over everything. "Grandma," Maya began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've been thinking about the future, about the program, and I think it's time to make it bigger. I want to open more centers, reach more kids. I want to make sure that every child who needs help has access to it." Her grandmother looked at her, her eyes shining with pride. "You've already done so much, Maya," she said softly. "But if this is what you want, if you believe in it, then I'll be here to support you every step of the way." Maya smiled, feeling a surge of love for the woman who had always believed in her. "I can't do it alone," she said. "But with your help, and the help of the community, I know we can make a real difference." The next day, Maya met with the billionaire to discuss her plans. He listened intently as she outlined her vision for expanding the program. He was impressed by her determination, her drive, and her unwavering belief in the power of education. "Maya, I believe in you," he said. "You've already done incredible things, and I know you're just getting started. I'll help you make this dream a reality." Together, they worked on a plan to expand the program, securing funding, partnerships, and support from all corners of the community. Maya's dream was becoming a reality, and she knew that with the help of those around her, she could continue to change lives, one child at a time. As the months passed, Maya's dream of expanding her tutoring program began to take shape. With the billionaire's support, she was able to open a second center in a neighboring town, and soon, there were more children benefiting from the program than ever before. Each new child brought with them a unique story, a new set of challenges, and an opportunity for growth. Maya had always known that the road ahead would be difficult, but with every step forward, she saw the difference her work was making. She had built something real, something that would outlast her, and that thought filled her with pride. But as the program expanded, so did the challenges. The more children Maya helped, the more she realized just how much was still needed. The community had come together to support the program, but the resources were still stretched thin. Maya found herself juggling responsibilities, working long hours to ensure everything ran smoothly. There were days when she felt overwhelmed, unsure of how she could keep up with the growing demands. One afternoon, as she sat in her office, reviewing lesson plans and budgets, the door opened, and her grandmother walked in. She had been helping Maya organize events and fundraising efforts for the program, and it was clear she could see the exhaustion in her granddaughter's eyes. "Maya, you've been working non-stop," her grandmother said gently, sitting down beside her. "You need to take a break." Maya looked up at her, tired but grateful for her concern. "I can't. There's too much to do. We're helping so many kids now, and I don't want to let them down." Her grandmother smiled softly. "You've already done so much, Maya. More than most people could ever dream of. But you're human. You can't do everything by yourself." Maya's heart ached at the truth in her grandmother's words. She had spent so long carrying the weight of everything on her own, afraid that asking for help meant she wasn't strong enough. But now, she realized that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of strength. "I guess I do need help," Maya admitted, her voice quiet. "I just don't know how to ask for it." Her grandmother reached over, taking Maya's hand in hers. "You don't have to carry it all alone," she said. "You've built something amazing, but you can't do it without a team, and it's okay to lean on others when you need to." Maya took a deep breath, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. It was a turning point for her. She had always been independent, always felt like she had to do everything herself. But now she understood that building something lasting required support from others. The next day, Maya reached out to the volunteers who had been helping her in the tutoring program. She explained her concerns and asked for their help in managing the growing responsibilities. To her relief, everyone was eager to step in. Together, they began to divide the tasks. One person handled the lesson planning, another worked on organizing the donations, and others helped coordinate with the schools. With the support of her team, Maya finally began to feel like she could breathe again. She wasn't alone in this anymore. As the program continued to grow, Maya saw more and more children benefiting from the work she had started. One of the most rewarding moments came when Jamal, the young boy who had once struggled with reading, stood in front of the class and read aloud from a book without hesitation. Maya could see the pride in his eyes, the same pride that she felt for him. It wasn't just about academic achievement, it was about giving these children the confidence to believe in themselves, to see their own potential. One evening, Maya stood outside the community center, looking out over the playground where the children were playing. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the scene. Her grandmother stood beside her, smiling as they watched the kids run and laugh. "Look at how far we've come," her grandmother said softly. "You've given these children a chance, Maya, and you've given me a chance to see you become the person I always knew you could be." Maya smiled, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I couldn't have done it without you, Grandma. You've always been there for me, even when I didn't think I could do it myself." Her grandmother squeezed her hand. "You've always had it in you, Maya. I'm just glad I could be there to see you realize it." Maya looked out at the children, a sense of fulfillment settling in her heart. This was what it was all about, not just giving children the tools they needed to succeed academically, but helping them find their own strength, their own voice. She had built something real, something that would last, and as long as she could keep helping, she would. The road ahead was still long, but Maya knew that with her grandmother by her side and the support of the community, she could face anything. She had a future ahead of her, and more importantly, she was creating a future for others. That was the greatest gift she could give. As the evening turned to night, Maya and her grandmother walked home together, side by side, their hearts full of gratitude for the journey they had taken, and the journey that still lay ahead. Months passed, and the tutoring program continued to grow, with more children joining every week. Maya, now fully supported by her team of volunteers and the community, saw the impact of her hard work every day. Children who once struggled to read now spoke confidently in front of their peers. Families who had been unsure about their children's future now believed in the possibilities that education could offer. Maya had built something powerful, something that was making a real difference. But with this growth came new challenges. As the program expanded, the resources became stretched thin once again. Maya had always managed to stay ahead of the curve, organizing fundraisers and securing donations, but now, the need was greater than ever. The community was supportive, but she knew that she couldn't keep doing this alone. One evening, as Maya sat at her desk, looking at the plans for the next month's lessons and outreach, her grandmother came in, carrying a cup of tea. "You're burning the candle at both ends again, aren't you?" her grandmother said gently, setting the cup down on the desk. Maya looked up, her eyes tired but filled with determination. "I just want to make sure we can help as many kids as possible," Maya said. "But the resources are starting to run low. I'm worried we won't be able to keep up." Her grandmother sat down beside her, a calm smile on her face. "You've already done so much, Maya. You've built something amazing here. But even the strongest of us need help sometimes. Have you thought about reaching out to the people who've supported you from the start?" Maya nodded, but there was hesitation in her heart. She had always been reluctant to ask for more help, fearing it would be seen as weakness. "I don't want to ask too much," Maya said quietly. "I don't want to burden anyone." Her grandmother took her hand in hers. "It's not a burden if it's something that matters. The people who care about you want to see this succeed. You've already given them so much hope. Let them help you, Maya." Maya sat back, her grandmother's words sinking in. She knew her grandmother was right. She had been afraid to ask for help, but maybe it was time to put aside that fear. She had built something meaningful, and she wasn't alone. The next morning, Maya reached out to the billionaire, who had always been there for her. She explained the situation, the increasing demand, the stretched resources, and the need for more support to keep the program going strong. He listened carefully, his voice full of understanding. "Maya, I've seen what you've done with this program, and I'm incredibly proud of you. You've built something that has touched the lives of so many. I will help, and I'm sure the others who have supported you will, too." With his help, Maya was able to organize a large fundraising event at the community center. The event would raise the necessary funds to keep the tutoring program running and expand its reach. As the date approached, Maya worked tirelessly with her team to plan every detail, from inviting community leaders to coordinating volunteers. The event was more than just a fundraiser. It was a celebration of what they had all built together. When the night of the event arrived, the community center was filled with people who were excited to support the program. Parents, teachers, local businesses, and even some of the children who had benefited from the program were all there to show their appreciation. Maya felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude as she looked around the room. She had never imagined that her vision would come this far. The billionaire was there, of course, offering his unwavering support. He gave a heartfelt speech about the importance of education, of giving every child the tools they needed to succeed. His words resonated with everyone in the room, and the donations began pouring in. The event was a huge success, surpassing their fundraising goal. Maya's heart swelled with pride as she looked at the faces around her. This was proof that the community was behind her, that they believed in the work she was doing. She had never felt more supported in her life. As the event came to a close, the billionaire approached her, a proud smile on his face. "You did it, Maya," he said. "This is only the beginning. You're changing lives, and the best part is, you're doing it with the people who believe in you." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. "I couldn't have done it without all of you," she said. "Without you, I don't think I would have ever had the courage to start." The billionaire placed a hand on her shoulder. "You had the courage all along, Maya. I just helped you see it." The weeks following the fundraiser were a whirlwind of new opportunities. The additional funds allowed the program to expand further, reaching even more children in the surrounding areas. Maya continued to lead with the same passion and dedication she always had, but now, with the support of her team and the community, the burden felt lighter. One afternoon, as Maya and her grandmother sat in their living room, Maya looked at the picture of the family they had always dreamed of. "I never thought we'd get here," Maya said softly. "I never thought I'd be able to help so many people." Her grandmother smiled warmly, her eyes filled with pride. "You've always been capable of this, Maya. I knew you had it in you all along." Maya nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She had built something more than just a tutoring program. She had built a community. And with every life she touched, she was reminded that her journey was just beginning. As the months went by, Maya's tutoring program continued to flourish, reaching more children than ever before. With the help of the community and the unwavering support of the billionaire, the program had grown into a well-established foundation that was changing lives. Maya had become not just a mentor but a symbol of hope for the children she worked with. Each day, she saw the progress in their eyes, their confidence, their academic growth, their belief in their potential. It was more than just tutoring. It was about empowering these children, giving them the tools to believe in themselves and pursue their dreams. But even as the program thrived, Maya knew there was still more to be done. She was constantly thinking about ways to reach even more children, to provide better resources, and to make sure that the foundation would continue to grow long after she was gone. She had spent so much time focused on building something strong that she had neglected to think about the future of the program. It was one thing to help children now. But what about when they grew up? What about the next generation? Maya sat in her office one evening, staring at the plans for the next phase of the program. The walls around her were covered in pictures of the children she had helped, along with drawings they had made for her over the years. It was a constant reminder of why she had started this journey in the first place. But the weight of responsibility was starting to feel heavier. She had always been the one to make the decisions, to keep things moving forward. But now, with the program expanding, she was beginning to realize how much more support she needed. It wasn't just about the kids anymore, it was about building a sustainable future for them. That night, Maya made a decision. She couldn't do it alone. She needed to bring in more people who shared her vision, people who could help guide the program into the future. She needed a team of leaders, not just volunteers. The next day, she met with the billionaire to discuss her plans. He had always been her biggest supporter, and she knew he would understand. She laid out her vision for the future. A network of tutoring centers that would not only provide academic support but also offer mentorship, career guidance, and life skills development. She spoke about the need to create a sustainable model, one that would continue to thrive long after the initial spark of inspiration had faded. The billionaire listened carefully, nodding in agreement. "You've come a long way, Maya," he said. "But this is the next step. You're ready to build something even bigger, something that will truly last, and I'll help you every step of the way." Maya's heart swelled with gratitude. She had always known that the billionaire had faith in her, but hearing him say those words made all the difference. She wasn't alone in this. With his support and the help of her growing team, she knew that they could take the program to new heights. Over the next few weeks, Maya worked tirelessly, bringing together a group of passionate individuals who shared her commitment to making a difference. They included educators, community leaders, social workers, and even former students who had benefited from the program. Together, they developed a comprehensive plan for the future, a roadmap that would guide the foundation for years to come. The first step was expanding the program's reach, opening new centers in underserved communities. Maya knew that there were still children who needed help, children who had been overlooked or left behind. The new centers would provide not only tutoring but also access to career resources, extracurricular activities, and counseling. Maya wanted these children to know that they had a future, that no matter their circumstances, they could achieve their dreams. As the plan took shape, Maya felt a sense of relief wash over her. This was what she had been working toward all along. She had built something strong, something that had already impacted so many lives, but now she was building something that would have a lasting legacy. The next phase of the program wasn't just about helping the children of today, it was about preparing the children of tomorrow. One evening, as Maya and her grandmother sat together at the kitchen table, Maya reflected on how far they had come. Her grandmother had been there from the very beginning, supporting her through every challenge, and now, she was proud to see Maya leading the charge for the future. "You've done more than I could have ever imagined, Maya," her grandmother said, her voice filled with admiration. "You've created something that will last, something that will keep helping people for generations to come." Maya smiled, feeling the weight of the responsibility she had taken on. "I couldn't have done it without you, Grandma. You've always believed in me." Her grandmother squeezed her hand. "You've always had it in you, Maya. I'm just glad I've been able to watch you grow into the amazing person you are today." The next few months were a blur of meetings, planning sessions, and fundraising events. Maya worked tirelessly to make sure the new centers were ready to open, while her team worked on securing funding and partnerships. It wasn't easy, and there were many late nights, but Maya remained determined. She knew that they were on the right path. And when the doors to the first new center finally opened, it was nothing short of a triumph. The children who walked through those doors, full of hope and excitement, were proof that Maya's dream was becoming a reality. As she stood at the front of the new center, watching the children interact with the volunteers, Maya felt an overwhelming sense of pride. This was just the beginning. The work wasn't over, but now, there was a solid foundation in place, one that would continue to grow and thrive for years to come. Maya had done it. She had created something that would not only change lives but would leave a lasting impact on generations to come. The months after the opening of the new centers were a whirlwind of progress and challenges. Maya had stepped into the role of leader more than ever, working alongside her growing team to ensure that each new center operated smoothly. She continued to provide guidance to the children, making sure that they not only received academic support but also access to the resources and opportunities that would empower them for the future. The children flourished under her leadership, and the centers became thriving hubs of learning, hope, and community. But as the program expanded, Maya started to feel the pressure of managing so many moving parts. The growth was undeniable, but with it came new responsibilities, and soon, the work became overwhelming. Maya had always prided herself on her ability to manage everything on her own, but the weight of it all was starting to take its toll. She knew she needed more support, and though she had a dedicated team, it was clear that they were all stretched thin. One evening, after a long day of meetings and reviewing lesson plans, Maya sat at her desk, rubbing her temples, feeling exhausted. She thought about how far she had come from a young girl with dreams to a woman leading a network of educational centers. But with every success came more challenges. She had built something beautiful, but it was a constant balancing act. Her grandmother, who had been her rock through it all, could sense Maya's growing exhaustion. That evening, as they sat together in the living room, her grandmother looked at her with concern. "Maya, you've been pushing yourself too hard. You need to take a step back." Maya smiled faintly. "I can't afford to slow down, Grandma. There's too much to do, too many kids to help." Her grandmother nodded but didn't let go of her gaze. "You've already done so much, and you've built something incredible, but you're only human. You can't carry the weight of the world on your own. Let the people around you help." Maya sighed, feeling the truth in her grandmother's words. She had been so focused on making sure everything was perfect that she had forgotten to ask for help when she needed it most. It wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of strength, she realized. The strength to recognize when she couldn't do it all alone and the courage to rely on others. The next day, Maya called a meeting with her team. She explained how much the work had grown, and how, despite all their hard work, there were still areas that needed attention. She asked for their input and ideas, and together, they came up with a plan to distribute responsibilities more evenly. Maya felt a sense of relief as she handed over some of the more administrative tasks to others on the team, allowing her to focus more on what truly mattered: the children, their success, and the future of the program. With the new structure in place, Maya began to find a better balance between the demands of the program and her own well-being. She started taking breaks, spending more time with her grandmother, and even revisiting some of the passions she had put aside during the hectic years of building the program. She took walks in the park, read books for pleasure, and reconnected with the things that brought her joy. She had learned the importance of self-care, and as she began to care for herself, she noticed a shift in her ability to lead. The team felt more supported, and the children benefited from the renewed energy she brought to the program. One afternoon, a couple of months later, Maya received a call that would change everything. It was from a large educational foundation that had been following the work of her program. They were impressed with the growth, the impact, and the way the community had come together to support the initiative. They wanted to partner with Maya's program to expand even further, providing financial backing, resources, and a platform to bring the program to a national level. Maya could hardly believe it. She had always dreamed of something like this, but now that it was within reach, she was filled with both excitement and fear. This was the moment she had worked toward, but it meant stepping into uncharted territory. It meant scaling the program to a level she had never imagined, and she wasn't sure if she was ready. But as she sat with her grandmother later that evening, she knew what she had to do. "Grandma, this could be the opportunity of a lifetime," Maya said, her voice steady. "But I don't know if I can handle it. What if I fail?" Her grandmother looked at her with a knowing smile. "You've already come so far, Maya. You've built this from the ground up, and if anyone can take this to the next level, it's you." You've already proven that you have the heart and the vision to make a difference. All you need now is to trust yourself." Maya looked at her grandmother, feeling a surge of confidence. "You're right," she said softly. "I've come this far, and I'm not going to stop now." The next day, Maya called the foundation back and accepted their offer. The partnership opened doors to new centers in cities across the country, providing a bigger platform to reach thousands more children in need. As the program expanded, so did Maya's impact. She became a recognized leader in the field of education, inspiring others to follow her example. She knew there would always be challenges, but now she was ready for them. She had built something real, something that mattered. And as she looked at the smiling faces of the children who had walked through the doors of her centers, Maya knew that she had created a legacy that would live on for generations to come. As Maya's program continued to grow and expand, so did the challenges. The partnership with the large educational foundation had opened up countless opportunities, but with those opportunities came new pressures. More children, more resources, more staff, and a wider reach meant that there was now an ever-growing need to maintain the quality of the program, while ensuring that each new center ran efficiently. Maya found herself facing decisions that required more than just passion and drive. She needed to think strategically, build stronger infrastructure, and manage an expanding team. The weight of it all was starting to feel overwhelming again. Late one night, as Maya sat at her desk, reviewing the reports from each of the new centers, her phone rang. It was the Billionaire. She picked it up immediately, grateful for the familiar voice on the other end. "Maya, how's everything going?" he asked. "I know the growth is exciting, but I also know it's a lot to manage." Maya sighed, rubbing her eyes. "It's been a lot. I never thought it would be this difficult. But now that we're expanding so quickly, there's so much to do. It feels like I'm constantly putting out fires, and I'm not sure how to keep everything from falling apart." The Billionaire's voice was calm, a sense of wisdom in every word. "Maya, you've built something incredible, but it's time to stop thinking you have to do it all yourself. You've already proven that you can lead, but now it's time to build a team that can help you lead. Trust the people around you, delegate, and give them the responsibility to keep this going." Maya felt a knot in her chest. She had always been the one to take on the challenges, to carry the burden, but hearing the Billionaire's words made her realize that it wasn't a weakness to lean on others. It was the next step in building something truly sustainable. "I know you're right," she said slowly, "but I'm not sure how to let go of control." The Billionaire chuckled softly. "It's not about giving up control, it's about trusting the people you've brought into your vision. You've created something that means so much to so many people. Now you just have to let others help you carry that vision forward." The next morning, Maya sat down with her team. She shared her concerns, her struggles with keeping everything running smoothly, and her fears about losing control. To her surprise, everyone nodded in understanding. They had all seen the immense growth, and they all knew that Maya could not continue doing everything herself. Together, they devised a plan to distribute responsibilities in a way that made sense for each individual's strengths. Maya would still oversee the overall direction of the program, but others would take on the day-to-day management of the centers, the coordination of volunteers, and the financial planning. The changes were not immediate, but over time, Maya began to feel the shift. She wasn't as weighed down by the small, constant details. She could focus on the big picture, the vision she had always had for the program. She could start dreaming again, not just about the day-to-day logistics, but about the long-term impact the program could have on communities across the country. As Maya became more comfortable with the new structure, the results spoke for themselves. The children continued to thrive, and the centers were running smoothly with the dedicated support of the team she had built. Maya had learned to trust others, and in doing so, she had found a new sense of freedom. One afternoon, as Maya was meeting with a local school district to discuss a new partnership, she received an unexpected call. It was from one of the children who had been a part of the program from the very beginning, Jamal, the shy boy who had struggled with reading. He had been one of the first children to benefit from Maya's tutoring, and Maya had watched him grow into a confident young student. "Maya, it's Jamal," he said, his voice full of excitement. "I just wanted to let you know that I got into college. I'm going to be the first one in my family to go." Maya felt tears well up in her eyes. Jamal's success was a testament to everything the program stood for: the hard work, the dedication, and the belief in every child's potential. "Jamal, "That's amazing," she exclaimed, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you. You've worked so hard for this, and I know you're going to do great things." Jamal's voice was full of gratitude. "I wouldn't be here without you, Maya. You helped me believe in myself when no one else did. You gave me the chance to dream." Maya smiled, her heart swelling with pride. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the proof that her work, the work she had poured her heart into, was making a real difference. It wasn't just about helping children succeed in school. It was about giving them the tools to build a better future for themselves. That evening, Maya sat in the quiet of her office, reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. She had started with nothing but a vision, a dream to help others, and a belief that education could change lives. Now, she had built a program that was touching the lives of thousands of children. She had built something bigger than herself, something that would outlast her. But more than that, she had learned the power of trusting others, of sharing the responsibility, and of building a community that could carry the weight of her vision. Maya looked out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. She knew there would always be challenges ahead, but she also knew that she had the support of her team, her community, and the children whose lives she had changed. She was no longer carrying the weight alone. Together, they were building a future that was brighter than any of them could have imagined. As the program continued to expand and thrive, Maya found herself standing at a crossroads. The success of the tutoring centers had exceeded her expectations, and now, with the infrastructure in place and her team fully supporting the mission, she had the ability to think even bigger. She had built something that not only helped children academically but had also sparked a movement in the community, a movement toward empowerment, self-belief, and the undeniable truth that every child deserved a chance to succeed. But as Maya sat in her office late one evening, looking over the progress reports, she couldn't help but feel a tug of uncertainty. The growth had been so fast, and the responsibility so heavy, that she began to question what the future held. Was she truly ready to take the next step? Was she prepared to sustain this success long-term? These questions weighed heavily on her mind as she watched the sun set through the window, casting a soft orange glow over the city. Her phone buzzed on her desk, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Jamal, one of the first children she had tutored, the one who had recently been accepted into college. Maya's heart warmed as she read the message. "I got my first scholarship, Maya. Thank you for believing in me. You changed my life." Maya smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. This was the very reason she had worked so tirelessly. These children were succeeding because of the support she had provided. And now, they were on their way to shaping their own futures. It was moments like these that reminded her of the impact she was making, of the real difference she had created in the world. Still, Maya knew that her journey was far from over. The future of her program was uncertain. Would it continue to grow? Would it stand the test of time? She had learned that even the most successful ventures required constant nurturing, constant evolution. Maya needed to make a decision. Should she take a step back and let the program run on its own, or should she push forward, aiming for a national reach? She took a deep breath, reflecting on everything she had built. She had gone from a young girl with no direction, living in a world full of uncertainty, to a woman leading a program that was changing lives. She had been afraid to ask for help, but now she knew that it was the strength of her team, her supporters, and her community that had allowed her to make it this far. The decision was clear. Maya wasn't done yet. She wasn't ready to step back. The next morning, she called a meeting with her team. Everyone had been working hard to keep the centers running smoothly, but Maya knew that they needed a more formal structure if they were going to continue expanding. She outlined her vision. It was time to create a foundation that would not only support the current tutoring centers but also fund new ones, provide scholarships for students, and offer career mentorship programs. The team was excited about the direction Maya wanted to take. With their combined skills and dedication, they could make this vision a reality. Maya wasn't just creating an educational program, she was building a lasting legacy. As they worked together to design the framework for this new foundation, Maya reached out to the billionaire for advice and support. He had always been a source of encouragement, and now, more than ever, she needed his guidance. When they met, she shared her plans for the future and the foundation she hoped to build. The billionaire listened intently, nodding with approval. You've already achieved so much, Maya. This next step is natural. It's what you've been working toward from the start. I'll be with you every step of the way, he said, offering her the resources she needed to get started. With the billionaire's help, Maya was able to secure funding and establish partnerships with other organizations that shared her vision. As the foundation took shape, she realized that the impact was far bigger than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just about providing academic support. It was about creating opportunities, building futures, and breaking cycles of poverty. The foundation's first major project was the launch of a nationwide scholarship fund aimed at giving students from underserved communities the chance to attend college. Maya worked closely with schools, counselors, and universities to ensure the scholarship was accessible to as many students as possible. She wanted to make sure that no child, no matter their background, would be denied the opportunity to pursue higher education. The day the scholarship program went live, Maya was overwhelmed by the response. Applications poured in from students all over the country, many of whom had never imagined that college could be within reach. Maya felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing that the work she had started was now reaching so many more children than she had ever thought possible. Over the next few years, Maya's foundation continued to grow. More centers opened across the nation, and the scholarship program gave hundreds of students the opportunity to attend college and chase their dreams. Maya kept in touch with many of the students, watching as they graduated, started their careers, and gave back to their communities. She knew that the program had created a ripple effect, one that would continue for generations to come. As Maya stood at the front of one of the new centers, watching a group of children eagerly working on their assignments, she felt an overwhelming sense of pride. She had built something that would last, something that would continue to change lives long after she was gone. The future was brighter than ever, not just for the children she had helped, but for every child who would be helped in the years to come. The journey had been long, filled with uncertainty, challenges, and growth. But Maya had persevered, and in doing so, she had created a legacy that would empower future generations and provide them with the tools to succeed, no matter where they came from. As the years went by, Maya's foundation became a beacon of hope for countless children across the country. The centers she had worked so hard to build were thriving, and the scholarship program she had created opened doors for so many students who otherwise would have never had the chance to pursue their dreams. Maya had achieved more than she had ever imagined. The children who walked through the doors of the centers were no longer just getting academic support, they were getting the chance to break free from the limitations their circumstances had once imposed on them. They were learning how to dream bigger, think bigger, and reach for a future that, for many of them, had seemed impossible. Maya's impact had rippled out into the community. Former students were now mentoring younger children, and families who had benefited from the program were giving back in their own ways. The once small initiative had turned into a movement that was making lasting change, but as the foundation continued to grow, Maya knew that the work was never truly done. There were always more children who needed help, more communities that needed to be reached, and more challenges to overcome. She had created something powerful, but she was constantly thinking about how to improve, how to take it further, how to leave a lasting legacy that would continue to impact generations to come. One day, as Maya sat in her office reviewing the latest progress reports, she received a call from one of her mentors, someone who had been with her from the beginning. It was the billionaire, and his voice, as always, was steady and encouraging. "Maya, I've been following the progress of your foundation," he said. "I couldn't be more proud of what you've accomplished. But I know you, and I know that you're always looking ahead. What's next for you?" Maya paused for a moment, thinking about his words. He was right, she was always looking ahead. She had never been content to rest on her laurels, and now, as her foundation was reaching new heights, she was wondering where to take it from here. "I'm not sure yet," she admitted. "There's still so much to do. I want to keep growing, but I also want to ensure that what we've built remains sustainable. I want to make sure that the impact we're having continues for years, even decades, into the future." The billionaire's voice softened. "I've seen your vision, Maya. You've built something that's lasting. But you've also created a system, a blueprint for success, that can be replicated. Have you ever thought about taking this model to other countries, to communities around the world?" Maya's heart skipped a beat. The thought had crossed her mind before. but she had always brushed it aside, thinking it was too big a leap. Now, hearing it out loud, it felt possible. "I've thought about it, but I'm not sure where to start," she said. "The foundation is still growing in the United States, and I want to make sure we're fully established here before we expand internationally." The billionaire chuckled. "That's your drive, Maya. You're always thinking about the next step, the next challenge. But you've built something strong here, and you've learned how to scale it. I believe you have the ability to take this beyond the borders of the United States." Maya sat back in her chair, her mind racing. The idea of expanding the program globally felt like the next natural step in her journey. She had always believed that every child deserved a chance, no matter where they were from, and now, with the success of her foundation, she had the resources and the support to make that dream a reality. "You're right," she said, her voice full of determination. "I think it's time to take this vision global. We've already seen the impact it's had here, and I believe it could make a difference for children all over the world." The billionaire's words echoed in her mind as she hung up the phone. He was right, she had built something powerful, something that was changing lives. And now, it was time to take it to the next level. Maya immediately began working with her team to develop a plan for expanding internationally. They started by researching countries where educational disparities were most pronounced, where children didn't have access to the resources and opportunities they needed to succeed. They looked into partnering with local organizations, government agencies, and nonprofits to ensure the program would be adapted to fit the unique needs of each community. As the team developed the expansion strategy, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be cultural differences, logistical challenges, and financial hurdles to overcome. But she also knew that the foundation had already proven itself to be adaptable and resilient. They had built a strong network in the United States, and now, it was time to take that same passion and dedication to the global stage. Maya's first trip abroad was to a country where access to quality education was limited, and the need for the program was urgent. She visited schools, met with local leaders, and spoke to teachers and parents who were eager to see change. The experience was eye-opening. She saw firsthand the impact that a lack of resources and support could have on a child's future. But she also saw the hope in their eyes, the same hope she had seen in the children back home. It was a reminder of why she had started this journey in the first place. Over the next few years, the foundation expanded into several countries, creating new centers and providing educational support to children who had once been overlooked. Maya's dream of a global movement had come true, and as she watched the program flourish in different parts of the world, she felt an overwhelming sense of pride. She had built something that was no longer just about one person, one community, or one country. It was a worldwide movement that would continue to touch lives for generations to come. As the years went by, Maya's foundation reached greater heights, expanding to dozens of countries and touching the lives of children all around the world. What had started as a small tutoring program in her local community had now become a global movement, one that not only helped children achieve academic success but also empowered them to believe in themselves and pursue their dreams, no matter where they came from. Maya had accomplished more than she ever thought possible. The foundation was stronger than ever, and the impact it had on the lives of children, families, and entire communities was undeniable. Yet, despite the incredible success of the program, Maya remained as driven as ever. She knew there was always more work to be done, more children to reach, and more barriers to break down. She continued to travel the world, visiting new centers and meeting with educators, local leaders, and students who had benefited from the program. Every time she saw the impact her work was having, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey had been long, filled with ups and downs, but Maya had built something that would outlast her. She had built something that would continue to change lives for generations to come. One day, as Maya sat in a meeting room in one of the new international centers, she received an email that would change everything. It was an invitation to speak at a global summit on education, bringing together leaders from all over the world to discuss ways to improve access to quality education for all children. The invitation was a testament to how far Maya's work had come. She had never imagined that she, a young girl from a humble background, would one day be asked to speak on the global stage. But as she read the invitation, she knew that this was another step in her journey, another opportunity to inspire and to continue pushing for change. The summit was held in a city known for its international influence, with representatives from governments, NGOs, and the private sector all coming together to discuss education. Maya felt nervous as she stepped onto the stage, but as soon as she began speaking, all of her doubts faded away. She talked about the importance of education, not just as a means to academic success, but as a tool for empowerment, for breaking the cycle of poverty, and for creating lasting change. She shared stories of the children who had been part of her program, the ones who had overcome incredible odds to succeed, and spoke about the role of mentorship, community support, and the belief in every child's potential. The audience was captivated by her passion and the work she had done. And as Maya finished her speech, the applause was deafening. She had done it. She had taken her vision from a small local initiative to a global movement, and now, her message was being heard by some of the most influential people in the world. The summit marked a turning point in Maya's journey. It solidified her belief that education could change the world. And now, with the foundation firmly established on a global scale, Maya knew that her work was far from over. There were still millions of children who needed help, and she was determined to ensure that every child had access to the resources and opportunities they deserved. But Maya also realized that the next step wasn't just about providing more resources or building more centers. It was about creating systems that would empower local communities to take ownership of their own educational initiatives. Maya's foundation had always been about more than just giving handouts. It was about empowering others to create lasting change for themselves. As the foundation expanded, Maya began to shift her focus toward capacity building, training local leaders and educators to run their own programs, and ensuring that the communities had the tools they needed to continue the work on their own. This approach meant that the foundation's impact would be more sustainable, and it would allow Maya's vision to live on long after she was gone. One evening, as Maya sat in her office reviewing plans for new community-led initiatives, her phone rang. It was Jamal, the first student to benefit from her program, who had since gone on to graduate college and start his own nonprofit. "Maya," he said, his voice full of excitement, "we're expanding our mentorship program to include even more schools. We're taking everything you taught us and passing it on. It's working. The kids are succeeding, and they're giving back just like we did." Maya smiled, feeling a rush of pride. "That's incredible, Jamal. I always knew you had it in you. You've built something powerful, and now you're making sure it continues." The call from Jamal reminded Maya of everything she had worked for. She had built something that was no longer just about one person or one community. It was a movement, a network of people who believed in the power of education to change lives. As Maya looked at the photos on her desk of her grandmother, her team, and the children she had helped over the years, she realized that she had done exactly what she set out to do. She had created a legacy that would continue to inspire future generations to believe in themselves and in the power of learning. Maya knew there would always be challenges ahead. The road to providing quality education for all children was long and filled with obstacles, but she was no longer afraid. She had built something that was strong enough to endure. And with the support of her team, the children, and the communities she had helped, Maya was ready to face whatever the future held. She had made a difference, and now, it was time to let the work continue, to allow others to build upon the foundation she had created. The world was changing, and Maya knew that her legacy would continue to shape the future for generations to come.